New York Times has a story by Joe Becker and Scott Shane on President Obama's kill list. That is the people that have been declared militants and people that need to be executed with our drone strikes. But before you even get to the kill list, what President Obama has done in regards to other portions of our national security apparatus is also interesting and amazing in a lot of ways. First, when he had said that we will no longer do the torture, which is true, and what we're holding fast to, the United States of America and our agents do not do torture, and we will no longer be doing the black sites where we hold prisoners indefinitely, and sometimes in Eastern European countries where they were literally in prisons that were former gulags. Well, the CIA complained, so President Obama had to adjust his strategy. So, for example, they came up with a new definition for detention facility that excluded places used to hold people on a short-term transitory basis. In other words, yeah, they're still open. Keep them short-term, whatever that means. Is it 2 days, 2 months, 2 years? No one's ever defined it, which allowed the CIA, of course, to keep running the things as they did. Their head counsel, Rizzo, complained, my God, you're going to stop the rendition program. There was a clarification saying that we're not really stopping the rendition program. In fact, you could take detainees to other countries where they might torture them, and we might get some information out of that torture. Well, that apparently also goes on. We didn't do the torture, but the rendition program continues. Third of all, they were supposed to be tried in criminal courts, of course, these detainees that we have. That was President Obama's promise to shut down Guantanamo Bay, except the security apparatus didn't like that either. So President Obama changed it so that you would go after these guys in criminal court if it was, quote, feasible. Okay, so in other words, military commissions were not ruled out. And the New York Times summarizes by saying, quote, without showing his hand, Mr. Obama had preserved 3 major policies: rendition, military commissions, and indefinite detention. So in many ways, the heart of the Bush regime continues in this field. Fantastic. Now, when you get to the Guantanamo Bay closing, now remember, the excuse that the Obama administration uses, well, there was nothing we could do, because the Republicans fought back on this and defeated us. Now, part of that is true, as I've said over and over. The other part is, I said they didn't fight back hard enough. They didn't make it a priority. Well, turns out I was correct. Here's what the New York Times reports. Quote, in fact, both Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton and the Attorney General, Mr. Holder, had warned that the plan to close Guantanamo prison was in peril, and they volunteered to fight for it on Capitol Hill, according to officials. But with Mr. Obama's backing, his chief of staff, Rahm Emanuel, blocked them, saying health care reform had to go first. So there it is. Because of Rahm and because of the decision President Obama made, we will not fight. We will not fight the Republicans. We will just accept their conditions on Guantanamo and keep it open, well, indefinitely. It appears that there is absolutely no plan right now to shut down Guantanamo Bay. So it is as unfortunately as we suspected. Now, how about the drone program? Well, you hear so often, and sometimes officials like William Brennan come out and say, hey, you know what? We didn't kill any civilians. Now, that was so patently absurd. He's the head of the counterterrorism for the Obama administration. That later he had to backpedal and say, all right, maybe it's in the single digits. A comical number they put out is 7. Well, here's the interesting part. How they count civilians. New York Times explains. Mr. Obama embraced a disputed method for counting civilian casualties. It, in effect, counts all military-age males in a strike zone as combatants, according to several administration officials, unless there is explicit intelligence posthumously proving them innocent. Do you understand that? That's unbelievable. So not only are they guilty until proven innocent, but they're actually executed before you could even prove them innocent. Your only chance of calling them something other than a militant or a combatant is if somehow you were to present evidence on those people after we already executed them. And by the way, this is not just New York Times opinion. They talked to 3 dozen current and former officials within national security apparatus for the Obama administration. Part of this is the Obama administration bragging about how tough they are on national security. Oh, fantastic. Look, I don't mind tough. In fact, I have mixed feelings about the drone program. I think it prevents war in some cases. But executing people we have no idea whether they're innocent or guilty, whether they're fighting us or not fighting us, is not my idea of tough. That's my idea of stupid, because it creates more enemies. And by the way, deeply immoral. Now, we've told you about this before. New York Times also reported about the personality strikes versus signature strikes. Personality strike is when we think we know who we're hitting. A signature strike is we have no frickin' idea. There seems to be some activity in that area. As one of the officials said anonymously to the New York Times, look, sometimes we hit fertilizer trucks. Is it fertilizer to make bombs? It could be. Is it fertilizer for a farm? It could be. Those are signature strikes, where we suspect activity by people we don't know because there seems to be something going on there that might at some point be against our interests. Unreal. Michael Leet is former director of the National Counterterrorism Center, and he talks about how after the Christmas Day bomber, the one that had the bomb in his underwear, President Obama got a scare, and everything was different after that. And I thought, as I read this sentence, I thought, oh no. He said, after that, as president, it seemed like he felt in his gut the threat to the United States. Now, I have to confess to you, as I read the sentence, I thought, no, no, no. He felt in his gut a threat to his politics. Because he thought, oh my God, because the Republicans went nuts after that. And the Times piece talks about it, and I remember crystal clear. They were like, how could you do this? You are so soft. And Dick Cheney came out and said, you see that? They're not doing any of our programs, and that's why the bomber got on the plane, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And President Obama was like, oh my God, this might actually affect me. No, 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 we can't have that. And as I was thinking that, you get 2 paragraphs down in the New York Times, and it is confirmed. Quote, David Axelrod, the president's closest political advisor, began showing up at the, quote, Terror Tuesday meetings. His unspeaking presence, a visible reminder of what everyone understood. A successful attack would overwhelm the president's other aspirations and achievements. The Tuesday terror meetings are where they put together the list of who they're going to kill. Okay, and those are the people we think we are hitting, that we think we know, let alone the ones we kill in signature strikes, right? What is your political advisor doing there? Your political advisor is there is because finally this touched a political nerve. Before it was no big deal to you. But wait a minute, it might hurt my political chances? Well, no, I got to increase the number of people we're killing. In fact, when you talk about Anwar al-Awlaki, who was a United States citizen in Yemen, well, that had to be a really difficult decision, right? Because here's a U.S. citizen. He's not going to receive any trial. He wasn't even indicted. Do you have any idea how easy it is to indict someone? And it would be in absentia. All the government would have to do is show up in a courthouse and say, here's our evidence. Can you please indict him as someone who is trying to attack the United States of America? They wouldn't even bother doing that. They just executed him. So that means the precedent has been set. Any U.S. citizen abroad can be executed summarily by any president if they feel he's a threat. They don't have to go to court at all. No due process. Now, of course, this is where Eric Holder famously said, well, due process is not necessarily judicial process, which means if the president gets together with people, including his political advisor, and thinks it's politically expedient to execute you, well, that's apparently the new due process. Well, you know, since this is so groundbreaking, President Obama must have really sweated this one out before he made the decision, right? Nope. According to his chief of staff at the time, William Daley, quote, this is an easy one, the president said. An easy one. If that's the easy ones, I hate to see the hard ones. Now, we move forward. So Dennis Blair is a former director of national intelligence. He objected to some of these programs. He thought we were going too far. Of course, he has been removed. How dare you be soft on terrorism when we're summarily executing U.S. citizens abroad? What do you mean? I don't even know if he made it to that point. He had so many problems with the programs. And here's what he says here. Quote, the steady refrain in the White House was, this is the only game in town. Reminded me of body counts in Vietnam. Of course, Dennis Blair also served in Vietnam. Hey, it's the only game in town, man. Drone strikes. Yeah, no, don't even think about it. It's all easy. Dennis Blair continues. It is the politically advantageous thing to do. Low cost, no U.S. casualties, gives the appearance of toughness. It plays well domestically, and it is unpopular only in other countries. Any damage it does to the national interest only shows up over the long term. By the way, in the article, it states, as any good reporting on the issues of Pakistan and Yemen state, that ever since the drone strike program began, our relationship with Pakistan and Yemen has been more rocky, and it has led to more instability. And in the case of Yemen, at least, there has been much more terrorism. Now, is that all connected to the drone program? We're not sure. Who cares? It's politically expedient. And if you have a problem, that's for another president to deal with. But this president's got to show how tough he is on national security. He's going to out-tough the Republicans. And the New York Times summarizes in the end by saying, quote, Mr. Obama's record has eroded the political perception that Democrats are weak on national security. Well, you might as well hang a mission accomplished sign. They continue, no one would have imagined 4 years ago that his counterterrorism policies would come under far more fierce attack from the American Civil Liberties Union than from Mr. Romney. But you see, to the Obama administration, what you just saw there is a point of pride. You see that? We're more vicious and stupid than the Republicans. So we get more criticism from the ACLU because we're shredding your rights than we do from the Republican barbarians. Well, congratulations. You must feel so proud. But this is definitely not the change I voted for. My guess is if you cared about any of these issues, it's certainly not the change you voted for.